I'm going to simply import. What do I want to import? I want to import the counter slice here. So I'm going to simply give it this temporary name known as what? Counter reducer. So that's the name I'm going to give it. Counter reducer. So where am I going to be importing it from? We all know that the counter slice is inside the features folder. So how do we get the features folder? We are in a folder known as app, which is on the same level as the features folder. So we have to go out one time. So in order for you to go out, you have to say dot dot. So I have to go out of this very app folder so that I can now say the what? Features folder. Then inside the features folder, I know I have another folder there called counter. Good. Then inside the counter, that is where I have my counter slice, which I want to import. And I'm getting this counter slice in here because I need to learn about the state of the counter. Okay. So now that I have the counter slice here, and you know that I've named it counter reducer. So this is a temporary name. It can actually be anything, but it's always good you put it in such a way that it can easily be understood. So I'm going to now bring it in here as one of the reducers here. So I'm going to simply take this out for now, and I'm going to bring it in here. So I'm going to assign it another name here known as counter. So which reducer do I want to bring in? I want to bring in counter reducer. Okay, so let's say we have a block. We would have said comma and entered. You can have block reducer. So if you have profile, we're going to have a profile reducer. So you can have as many reducers as possible. So all the slices that you have to import all of them here from all their features and put them inside this general store so that your store will be seeing all of them, no matter where they are. Okay, so I'm going to take out these two because we don't need them for now. And I'm going to do Ctrl S to save this. And you can see no errors in my terminal. No errors in my terminal. So make sure there are no errors in your terminal.
So please, I want to check something in the counter slides.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up. The counter slides.
Yeah.
So as you're doing this, some of you might be trying to memorize this. You don't really need to memorize them, but understand the way I'm explaining it, the way it's moving. This boilerplate, you're always gonna just create it out. Nobody will ask you to do any of them off head, but you have to know how it is laid out so that when you want to make changes or you want to add more reducers, more actions, you know what to do in order to add up your reducers and actions. So that's why I'm taking our time to explain it so that you can get the way it is done in a gradual.
Okay, thank you, sir. You can go back.
Okay, thank you. So we were in store.js. So this is how we reference the counter slice in the store. Okay, now, so immediately after setting up your slice, your store, the next thing will now be to go to that component, that very component where you want to have your state. You come inside there and you have to bring in that very state, or get to see that very state, or get to dispatch action to it, or get to see the state. So please, let's get to our counter.js. We're almost there. We're almost there. Almost. Okay, so now, if you want to be able to communicate that general store that we created, you remember our general store that is inside our app.js. If you want to communicate with that store, you will need two things. One is that if you're fetching data from the store, you need a hook known as use selector. And this hook is from React Redux. But if you want to dispatch an action into that very store again, you need what we call use dispatch. So dispatch is for performing action, selector is for getting a state that is inside the store. If somebody is not on mute, okay. So the two things that I talked about, in order for us to talk to the general store, the two hooks, use selector to fetch a state that is in the general store, or use dispatch to take an action and get it to the state. Okay, so those are the two that we're going to be importing. You can see that it's importing connect from Redux, React Redux. Like I said, if you are using the normal Redux, what you would have used to connect would have been connect. But we are no longer using the normal Redux. We are using the Redux toolkit, which is the right thing. You can see my IntelliSense. Over Sabi, they worry my IntelliSense. So it already knows about normal Redux. But that's not what we want to do. So I'm simply gonna import from. So what am I importing? I'm actually importing use selector. That's how they normally write the selector. Write the hooks. The hooks, you must start with the word use. So I'm getting use selector and what? Use this patch. So where am I getting them from? I'm getting them from React Redux. Okay, so I'm getting them because I'm going to use them. I'm going to use them. So once you get them, the next thing you will do is to make sure that you declare them. And where do you declare them? You must come before your return statement. That's where you declare them, before your return statement, just under this. So I'm gonna bring in the count, which is the state I want. And I say to bring in the count, you need to use selector, but to dispatch an action, you use dispatch. So I'm gonna simply say const. I'm not calling it counter, I'm calling it count. That's the name I gave my state. So once I do that, I'm now going to use the word use selector that I imported. Then I'm going to use it to grab the state. So please make sure you put this state. So I'm going to grab the state. So what part of the state do I want? Definitely, I don't want the whole state. I simply want the state that is exposed by the counter reducer, and the name of the state is simply count. So you say the state you want is actually state.counter.count. So you have to specify the very state you want. So with this now we have the count here, very importantly. That is how you get the state. But not just this state that we want to also perform an action. So we need to bring in, use the dispatch to perform an action. So we have to declare dispatch first before we can use it. So we simply say const dispatch and we're getting it from the use dispatch. Okay, so those are the two. You can see the two functions that we imported. We've used them here. So use this first one to fetch the count state and put it here. Then use this one to get the dispatch, which you are going to use to dispatch the actions. Okay, so with that done, I can simply come into my div here and make sure that I put my counter in H3. Okay, let me leave it in H2. So put your counter in H2. Then I'm going to have a P tag where I'm going to have my count state. So I'll simply write count. Okay, I'm going to save to make sure that it is well arranged. So I'm simply putting this one in H2 and then I'm putting this one in P tag. So this very count brought in now, you can see this count, we brought it in from the general store. We are now able to use it in this component. So we are going to create another component. And we are going to see that we can see this count there as well. So any component, as many components as you're creating, once you bring in use selector and you're able to use the use selector to fetch the state, you can always render it anywhere. Which we are going to demonstrate in this very class. Okay. So now that we have our account, it is important that we are able to increment and decrement. That's the next thing we will do. We have to be able to increment and decrement. So we can do that using a button. So we can come here and simply import a what? Button. So just like we did before. So that button,
I did not ask him. Is it close? How can
I want to make this simple. I don't want to write interesting. So this is our button. So this button I'm going to simply put plus in this button. So this button I'm going to give it an on click event.
And then your friend travel. I'm asking you, is it very close?
So once you click on this button, just like we did before, we need to have a callback function.
After 6 months. Who?
And we are actually calling what? Dispatch. Very, very important. So we are passing an action to what?
I'm asking you, is it Aquaberry or okay. Huh? Okay. Yeah, I know. So you went for burial.
What kind of action are we dispatching? Increment.
Okay. Easter. Oh yeah. August 6
So that is what we have there.
August 6 months.
But you can see that this very action increment that we are calling here, we've not brought it in here. So we are supposed to do that. We are supposed to import that very action. So first thing we'll do up here, we're simply going to say import the two actions that we are going to be using. And number one is what? Increment, and number two is what? Decrement. Okay, so I'm going to import them from counter slides because we know that that's
I don't know what I would do. If I get hearing, I'm not seeing this.
is where they are, and two of them are on the same level. So because I've used increment, that's where it is checked here. But this other one that I've not used, it is not checked. So I'm going to simply come down here and simply bring in this button for decrement.
No, we are partnering with PwC. PwC is
So those are the two buttons that we have now. Increment.
PwC is the sponsor. They contracted us to do it.
And decrement. So whenever you
We are in partner with PwC for this training.
click is going to dispatch an action. So the type of action is dispatching is decrement. So once you do that, it's going to simply get into the slides and check the action that is decrement. What do you want me to do? I'm simply going to take the old state, which is the initial state, and minus something from it. That is what is happening. So it's always an action creator that dispatches this. So this is a button. So this button is actually an action creator. So you're going to create this action of increment, and you're going to dispatch it
You're making like
to the slice.
yeah, you're looking for them excited. Yeah. You should have yourself. This food is just I'm excited like this. This is something we make every day. In a shop. We are happy. Yes, boss. Enjoy. Why is it giving me 21,600?